Hello and welcome to this video from Diary of a Trader, and today we're going to go over synodic lines and planetary lines and how they relate to trading. And this is an Optima by Market Analyst. It's a very awesome piece of software. Now, if I want to look at how and why planetary lines work, first I'm going to need a chart. So I'm going to use Bitcoin. And the dollar pair. And so this is the daily close. And so what I want to do is I want to add the lines of planets onto a chart. Now the gentleman responsible for doing this, his name was William Delbert Gann, and he had a idea of changing the way that we look at charts and the way we look at horizontal and vertical lines of support and resistance in time cycles. And so what he did, there's something called Gann Planetary Lines, but in addition to that, there's also synodic lines, and all these angles is the longitudinal position of a planet and then converted onto a price chart. And so if we look at this synodic lines here, we can tell that this is the synodic cycles of Mercury and Venus onto a chart together. But Bitcoin is mostly sensitive to Mars and Uranus. And if we can tell just by looking that this synodic relationship seems to act as the normal and natural area that Bitcoin follows. If we were to go back in time here and even look back, we can see that there is a lot of past price history that shows that Bitcoin really likes to follow this cycle. And as it flattens out and planes out, we get to see how it may trade. Now, one of the strengths of this is that there are harmonics that we can add to kind of increase that we can input divisible lines in between the major cycles to give us kind of another area of support and resistance to look at. So if we're looking at it with only the two harmonics where we have one major, one minor, we could go with 8. That looks a little noisy, but certainly if we were to zoom in, we could see that this is still a viable way to look at our chart. We can see some natural areas of support and resistance, but personally I just like to leave 2 on there. That is enough. And you can see that price and Bitcoin really responds accurately to these levels. And what is actually very interesting about synodic lines or planetary lines is that these are naturally occurring mathematical measurements. These are not subjective and dynamic values that you just add because something's at a support or resistance area. It does take a little work on the analyst's part, because you have to determine which planetaries synodic cycles will work. Oftentimes you can get there by using just Gann, they're called GPLs, Gann Planetary Lines. And if we put that on our screen, we see here the first one is this is only Mercury. And Mercury seems to hold up as a pretty standard area of support and resistance, but we can also look at Venus, Mars, and this is why Mars is such a important cycle and planet for Bitcoin. Not every not every market is going to respond to the same planet. So in each chart seems to be sensitive to one versus the other. Jupiter and Saturn are certainly charts that show the most amount of relevance in many, many markets. It's an actually pretty fascinating way to look at these markets. And what's actually kind of fun to do is if we plot all of these on our screen. So here we've got Mercury, and we'll just change that to black, and then we can add another one, and we'll do Venus, and we'll color that one blue. And then let's add, we've already got Mars, got Mercury again there. Let's do Jupiter. Or do we want to do Saturn? No, we don't have Mars on there. That's right, Mars. And we will color that red. And we'll just leave those ones on there for now. And what we want to look for as this happens is we see that there are times when they cross each other, when some planets are going to cross each other. When we notice that happen, and we can see it happen in the future, we should be aware of what price is doing at that time, because often prices have some type of response to planets that cross each other, have a crossover and on their cycles. So for instance, in Bitcoin, we saw that when Venus and Mercury and Saturn were all crossing over each other, we were near a market high, and then that promptly sold off. And where do we see the next time when we have this major crossover here in the future? Well, we have to set up a few more. We'll do 1,000 blank bars. We can look over in the future, and we can see that that next one is probably, we're looking at, on these faster planets, we're really looking at sometime in September of 2019. And the most, kind of the closest interaction we're going to find from here is more than likely going to be this zone here, and that's in October of 2018. But with all of these planetary angles and planetary lines, what's important to know is that there is generally one and sometimes two planetary angles that some charts are more sensitive to than others. And they act as very neat and clean areas of natural support and resistance. And I've done this, I do this in my own trading, in my own charts. This is the Euro, and this is the planetary line of Saturn. The pound, planetary line of, this is the synodic lines of Uranus and Pluto. The Aussie dollar, you can see these wavy lines. This is Jupiter and Saturn. US dollar, Canadian dollar, Jupiter and Uranus. And then Bitcoin, finally, we have, oops, there, click on it. This is just Mars. All right. So this is a very powerful form of analysis, and it's fun to learn about, fun to apply, and without having to know a lot about the math and how it's applied and placed on the charts, software can do that for you now these days, and it's a fantastic way to add some natural structure and elements to your trading. Hope you found this video enjoyable, and I look forward to talking to you in our future videos. Thank you.